Heyo, welcome in to the Undrafted and Unqualified Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Anthony, and I'm here with Vinny, and pretty exciting episode for you guys today.
Yeah, so today we're going to get into our first of a few ranking episodes, and we're going to start with the quarterback position. So we're just going to go down our combined top 12 quarterbacks of our two rankings together. And then as we touch on each guy, we're going to talk about where we had them individually and also compare it to the Fantasy Pros consensus rankings as well. So kind of like a holistic deep dive into some of these quarterbacks. And we're going to talk about our top 12 today.
Yeah. Yeah, so this will be a fun episode. Our rankings combined is pretty cool to look at too because it takes both of ours and just puts them together. Um, but yeah, without further ado, let's just hop into it. So we're gonna go from 12 to 1. So our consensus quarterback 12 was Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers. So I have him down at 14, and Vinny, you have him all the way up at 10, which averaged out to QB 12 overall. So Justin Herbert in consensus is 13. So we're a little bit above him. I guess you are a lot more above him than I am, but in terms of consensus, we both have him right above consensus overall, quarterback 12 compared to 13.
Yep.
With you being the most bullish on him at quarterback 10 overall, why don't you go ahead and talk about why you have him so high?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, Justin Herbert as a fantasy quarterback has kind of just been disrespected for the most part. I mean, we had him at what'd you say his consensus ranking was?
He's at 13.
Yeah, so he's at 13. That's outside of a QB1 in a 12-team league. And for me, I mean, the guy has just been around a QB1 finish every year of his career almost. And these past 2 years specifically, he's been super down in attempts. I mean, this past year he had 504 passing attempts. In those Charger days with the Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, a few years ago, he was averaging close to 700 attempts. And I think we start to see that number creep up even more. And when he had a career low last year with 504, he still had a QB 11 finish. And so, I mean, that's a QB one right there. And where we have him at 12 right here, that's one spot above. But I mean, the guy, I think they're building the offense to be an elite level offense. And I know the critique of Herbert as a fantasy QB is that the Chargers like to run the ball. They're very run focused. And I would completely agree with you that with that being said, of getting a Martin Hampton, Najee Harris. But I just think, drafting Trey Harris on year two of Ladd McConkey, I think there's so much more to unlock. And with a QB 11 finish of that low of attempts, I don't know. I just see it potential of creeping up, and I felt that 10 for me was the right range to like that's his floor. Not floor, but like around his floor of like 10 to 12. And there's definitely more in the tank for me. So I felt that that's kind of why I was way above maybe consensus for the most part.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess, I have his stats here, so that's why I'm looking off to the side a little bit. But I guess my biggest concern is 500 attempts is still a lot. So if they're trying to identify as a rushing offense, rush first offense, um, it's a little bit concerning to me. I guess that's kind of the big issue. And then the weapons that are there, I know they're young and it could turn out to be something, but I feel like I need to see it first. I love Ladd, but and as much as I love Trey Harris as a sleeper, what is he going to be in the NFL? Mike Williams just retired. Quentin Johnston, I saw a clip of him dropping a pass in his hands again the other day. So,
Yeah.
outside of maybe these two guys, which as of right now, we can only say it's one because we've seen Ladd on the NFL field. I just don't know who's there for him. And when he was producing, Keenan Allen was there, and Mike Williams was also much better as a receiver at the time, and he had kind of these two almost elite options to throw to. His
Mhm.
It's interesting. His rushing upside is actually he had 306. He had a career high last year in
Yeah.
rushing yards, and he had two touchdowns on the ground, which, that's fine. So that's okay, but the touchdowns as a whole were down the past few years, actually. He had 23 last year. Career low, three interceptions, which you love to see. It's a great accuracy thing, but I guess Herbert for me just fits into like this big tier of guys I'd be comfortable with, but in within that tier, there were just other guys I'd prefer to have over him. They have a solid offensive line. They're ranked 10th in PFF, which you love for your quarterback. So that's great. They're dead middle in strength of schedule at 15th. So, it's nothing to write home about, but it's not going to be super, super hard either. I really think with Harbaugh there, they're going to be a run first team. And like I said, with the weapons there, I think there's just other options around him who I would prefer maybe a little bit. But again, he's still coming to the quarterback 12 overall for us, which, that's a QB1. That's a starting quarterback on your fantasy team. So if it comes down to it and Herbert's the last quarterback that, he's kind of in that big tier and I'm waiting on quarterback. I don't think I'd be mad at it. I definitely would not be mad at it. I wonder what the ceiling is for him.
No, that's a fair point. And I agree with you as well that the fact that there's a lot of guys in this same tier. You could go past like 13, 14, 15, and so on. Even for me, 11, 12. But I know for you, he is at 14. But I mean, they're all in a similar tier where I think you're getting similar output and production from a fantasy standpoint. But I just feel like I've just been a Herbert guy, so maybe there's some bias in it. But
Yeah.
I mean the efficiency last year is just what stood out to me. Like you mentioned the three picks, but that's like a crazy stat line. If you bump those
Yeah.
touchdown numbers up in some of those attempts to like maybe the mid 500s, and I know that is a lot, but at the same time, I think he's such a talent that you have to unlock some of that. And I think Harbaugh's smart enough to know that as a coach.
Yeah. I think just the other worry too, I'm looking here at his game log from last year and Sleeper tells you like, it's green if it's a great matchup, it's red if it's a bad matchup. He had one team that was red last year. The rest, almost all of them were green. Like he had a very easy schedule for a quarterback and still finished at QB 12. So I'm just a little hesitant. It's not a scary schedule, which I like a lot, but I guess just even being a little bit more difficult, it makes me pause a little bit and say, all right, let me look at some of these other options first. Again, maybe the stacks are there. You have Lad, you want to get Herbert, that boosts his value. But
Yeah.
I think he's kind of a guy where at the end of the day, I'm okay with, but I'm not excited about.
Exactly. And I feel like that's why it's a good spot for him at 12. Like you're not like investing in early picking. This is a guy you can get in the 10th, ninth, 11th round even. So I mean, there's not much of a risk you're taking. At worst comes worst, you drop him or bench him and pick someone else up. But yeah, that's why I feel like it's a good spot for him. But I agree with you on the upside. That's why it's like there's not much of rushing upside that's going to creep into that top 7, 6 range. But yeah, that's why I think it's a fair ranking of 12 for him.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Our quarterback 11, actually, both of us have him at 12. And that's Jared Goff. And you're like, well, Anthony, you just said Justin Herbert averaged out to 12 for the two of you. Well, Vinny and I spent some time talking about guys who ended up tying. There's only two of us on the podcast. So when it comes to those ranking averages, we decided as like a collective, all right, who are we going to put above them? Do we want to follow consensus? What do we want to do in this specific situation? And we decided to go with Goff right above of Herbert. And he's our quarterback 11. I think it's interesting. We were one spot ahead on Justin Herbert. Goff were four spots ahead of, as Goff is the quarterback 15 in consensus. So Vinny, talk to me why you got Goff in your top 12.
Yeah, I feel like there's like this kind of bias in the fantasy community that, year in and year out, rushing upside is so important to QBs, which it is. But I feel like it's only that important to those top, five guys that kind of that's why they're top five guys because they have a mix of both. But I feel like when there's guys like Justin Fields, who I'm not as big a fan of, but I think you could agree he gets pushed up just because of his rushing upside. Everyone knows there's not much passing talent there. It's strictly because of the rushing upside. And I feel like that even a guy like Bo Nix, who I know there's some passing talent, but like he has that rushing upside as well, and I think that's why he's getting pushed in. And I think it kind of affects guys like Goff, who are just studs and finish. He has three straight QB1 finishes with Detroit, and he's a statue quarterback, a guy that kind of just stands in the pocket, but he's very good at it. The guy's throwing 30 plus touchdowns the past 3 years. And that's the key to fantasy points is the quarterback's throwing touchdowns, getting yards, just being an efficient elite offense. And that's what he is. So honestly, just looking at the past production and not much changed the situation aside from Ben Johnson leaving as the OC. I guess there it could be some worry to it, but honestly, I don't see it affecting it as some people. I don't see it affecting him as some people might think. So yeah, just off of past production and the fact that you know similar situation, I kind of felt I had to put him as a QB1. There was no reason not to.
Yeah, I kind of fall in the same boat. Like I don't know if I'm going to be going to get Goff. I don't think he's a quarterback I
Yeah.
necessarily want on my fantasy team. But he finished as the quarterback 10, 7, and 6 last year. So those are the last 3 years. Quarterback 10 3 years ago, quarterback 7 2, and last year was quarterback 6 overall. So again, like you said, three straight QB1 finishes, top 10 QB finishes. And his attempts were down last year, which I think is really interesting and important to bring up. His attempts were down a lot. He had 539 attempts compared to 605 from the year before. Yet he threw for more yards last year. And he threw for more touchdowns. He threw 37 touchdowns, which is it's high. That was a career high for him. I kind of expect those numbers to fall a little bit. And I mentioned Goff, like, oh, we're drafting him at his ceiling. Like we very well may be, but at the same time, like I was looking at, offensive line rankings. I'm a little bit worried after some retirements and stuff like Frank Ragnow retiring, that's brutal.
Yeah.
But when looking at strength of schedule, generally, oh, you want an easy schedule. That's where you're going to get a lot of value from. The thing about Goff and the strength of schedule, the Lions are a really good football team. And if the strength of schedule is hard, I think that's a good thing. Because if you're a really good football team, you're going to be up in a lot of games and you're going to be able to run the football. If they have a hard schedule, they're going to have to throw the ball at times. And I think that's kind of, like I just said, kind of a good thing. Like they opened the schedule with Green Bay, Chicago, Baltimore, and Cleveland. Those first 3 games, maybe not Cleveland, but those first 3 games, I think he's going to have to pass the ball. And
Mhm.
no, they're not exciting. Like, I don't want, oh, Goff, I got to start him against Baltimore. I don't really like that. But at the same time, like, he's going to have to pass it. They can't just run through Montgomery and Gibbs the whole time. So there's kind of like mixed feelings when it comes to strength of schedule for me. But in this specific situation, I kind of like it. And I'm probably not drafting Goff anywhere, to be completely honest with you. And I don't even know if I'm going to draft Herbert anywhere. They're just not exciting guys. They're these pocket passers. Goff has no rushing upside compared to Herbert, who does have some. Um,
Mhm.
but that offense is so good, dude. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. I don't know who their third guy is, but then you have Gibbs out the backfield too, and the O-line is still solid even after
Yep.
retirement. It's one of those teams where I have a lot of faith in Dan Campbell and the team being really successful as a whole that I just couldn't lower Goff as much as I wanted to. So Goff ended
Yeah.
up at 12 for me, and I think that's a pretty good spot to have him.
Yeah, and just to touch on when you were saying about like this doesn't mean I would draft these guys. I think that's a good point just to to make sense for the listener just because this doesn't I think it's more I guess the way to describe it would be more of like our prediction of like the top 12 fantasy finishes in a way, like of like
Yeah.
what how things are going to play out. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're like rushing to get these players at their current ADP or value. So I think that's important to note as well.
Yeah, I think in general too, if you wait on quarterback or any position really, you're taking guys with upside. Whereas the
Yep.
two guys are pretty capped, the Chargers, just how good are they going to be? How high could Herbert finish? Goff,
Hmm.
he finished at quarterback 6 last year with a career high in touchdowns. I think that's his ceiling, you know. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
you're shooting on guys like you know, I guess I'll go ahead and spoil this. But a guy not in our top 12 is Justin Fields. I'd rather take my shot on Fields knowing that there's upside there and there's a lot of rushing upside with that. Now, the toe injury today, I know. It's a little bit of a concern for a rushing quarterback on a new team, especially the Jets. So I don't like it that much, but at the same time, it's like when you're creating your build, maybe go Fields and then get one of the stable guys later. So um, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's just to bring up the point where it's like, you know, I think I'd rather take my shot at some upside guys than Goff, who's like, oh, Goff's cool. Unless, again, we've talked about it before, but like you pair these guys, okay, you go ahead, get Goff or Herbert, and then you draft a young guy with upside a little later, like Drake May, for example. I think that is always a nice pairing because, you know, if Goff does have that floor and a cap ceiling, but he has a good matchup, you throw him in there. We know what Goff did in great matchups last year. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah, I guess I'm rambling on now, but just that's a lot to say. Like, you know, these are rankings of like generally like how we feel where they could finish or where they will end up, and we're not necessarily factoring in upside completely when we're doing our rankings.
exactly. Yeah.
So let's move on. Quarterback 10. We have Bo Nix here. So I have him up at 9. Vinny, you have him down at 11. So he averaged out to 10. That's where he is. So
Mhm.
10 is actually below consensus by 2 spots. Bo Nix is number 8 in consensus. So we're a little bit lower. Um, as I'm a little bit more bullish on him than you are, yet I'm still below consensus. I guess the thing about Bo Nix for me, that offensive line is so good. It's so good. He has a lot of rushing upside. The strength of schedule, they're 14th, they're middle of the pack, you know, so it's not like this is a hard schedule for them. I really don't like the weapons around him, but Bo Nix had a really successful rookie season. And he's going into year 2 with Cortland Sutton again, with Marvin Mims, who we both like as a sleeper. Evan Ingram's brought into the fold. I think the offense has actually improved, even though it's still not like amazing. You're not like, oh my God, this is a team with, you know, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It's like, no. It's Cortland Sutton as their wide receiver one. But I think he's really solid as a receiver, and Evan Ingram's a really solid tight end. You have some improved rushing in the system now too, so you don't have to just rely on the team. But hey, oh, that takes away touchdowns. I know it could. I know it could. I absolutely get that. But at the same time, like that just improves the offense as a whole, which means more touchdowns as a whole. And I'm kind of in on Bo Nix this year. I like him at the spot. I don't like him too much, right? You know, I think he has a little bit more ceiling than the two guys we just talked about, as well as some floor with the rushing upside and rushing capabilities, especially going into year 2. But Bo Nix is also not a guy you're like, oh, I'm drafting him as a top 5 quarterback. So you have to keep it capped because that offense, the weapons around him aren't amazing, even though I think they're improving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess this is one of the first ones that we'll disagree on a little bit. Or I mean, in a yeah, we're like 2 spots off, right?
Yeah, we're 2 spots off.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, I was just looking into Nick's games stats last year, and I don't know. He had a like you mentioned, he had a ridiculous year. He had 29 touchdowns, only to 12 picks. He had like 450 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. Um, the Broncos overall were super successful, and it was kind of out of nowhere. And for me, he had a QB7 finish last year. And honestly, like that was a big surprise for everyone. I think no one expected Bo Nix or the Broncos to come out and light it up like that. And for me, that just kind of seems like his ceiling is like a QB7 finish. And so like I don't see him creeping above the names above like in that 6-1 range. So for me, it just I picture somewhat of a regression if I'm picturing that as his ceiling last year. And so I that just kind of dropped him in my rankings for me, just that thought process of if his ceiling from in my mind is the QB7 in that kind of very good productive year, then ranking in the consensus at 8 just feels too high for me. And I guess that's just a personal opinion because I'm sure there are people that believe he could be like the next Josh Allen and creep into that top 5 territory of QBs on a year-to-year basis. I just don't see that for him. I mean, he did, he does kind of have that narrative of, last year he has some outlier games that stick out of like he beat up on Carolina, he beat up on Atlanta, he beat up on a bad Cincinnati defense. I think he beat one of his highest scoring game was against the Chiefs when they were sitting
Week
starters.
18. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. There's those outlier games like you can't take them away from him at all. But at the same time, just if we start to have a few less of those outlier games, does that QB7 finish with them? I just see it going down. So that's kind of why I was a little below consensus at 11.
hmm Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of green here, in his schedule from last year. So it wasn't a tough schedule. I guess very similarly to Herbert, they both had pretty easy schedules last year. Um, but here, I guess for me, I think just Nix with the rushing upside. I know you're seeing a regression, and Bo Nix was not a guy everybody liked coming out of college. What was he? The fifth quarterback, I think, in last year's draft class.
Yeah,
Like,
he was the last one taken in the
and
first, I
he
think.
was
Yeah.
taken early too. Like
Yeah.
everyone was surprised when the Broncos took him, but they saw something and they got production. And I think
Yeah.
it's still for me, I always have a tough time wrapping my head around names such as Bo Nix. Like, for example, Bucky Irving, like, oh my God, he's going into year two, but he was not a day one pick. I don't even know if he was
Yeah.
a day two pick. And it's like just wrapping my head around that's tough. And it's the same thing with Nix. But I think the hardest part for me, um, the thing you said is that he's already hit a ceiling. This guy's going into year two. And I think going into year two, I don't think we can have a ceiling after a rookie year, especially on a team that's slowly improving. The defense is really good right now. I I would just be really surprised, hey, maybe it is a ceiling. Maybe you're right. But I think saying that that's what we saw him and then baking it into the rankings is where I have a little bit of a different mindset than you do on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that was the wrong way to put it. Like, he can definitely, I meant more in terms of like fantasy impact. Like, sure, Bonex can get much better as a football player.
Yeah.
Like, he can become much more accurate in that sense. But I just think the way everything played out, like, I guess I'll put it this way. I can imagine the Broncos getting better, and they did get better in terms of like team assets. I can imagine them being a better football team, and that doesn't necessarily mean that Bo Nix is a better fantasy QB, if that makes sense. Like I guess I more meant his like fantasy ceiling. Like, and I guess that does sound weird. It's like going into year two, but I don't know. I just feel like everything played out perfectly for them that year, and he had a really successful year. And just in terms of the guys ahead of him, I just can't see him surpassing them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I don't know if I'm gonna draft him, right? I don't know exactly where he's going. I can pull that up here. But he's still an eight. Like if he's going at the QB8 and he's going pretty early, like I guess that would be a big concern for me. Why I wouldn't be drafting him, but damn, what is this here? I guess I got to do overall rankings. Um, but yeah, as I'm looking this up here, just some of these guys, like you can grab Goff, you can grab Herbert later. Bo Nix, you're gonna have to spend. He's going 80th overall, which is pretty high. Actually, in ESPN, it looks like he's going 67th overall, which is even higher.
Yeah.
I guess where would 80 be? That's like the seventh round. Like you're spending a premium pick almost on Bo Nix. So I won't be drafting him there. I'll tell you that. Like I'd rather wait and then take a shot at somebody else. Like absolutely. but I think I get the upside, and that's why I think he's ranked like lower end, definitely lower than where he finished last year. But I think there's something to like here.
Yeah, no, and honestly, like not based on the value, but I think I'd rather have some of the upside in terms of rushing value over a guy maybe like Goff.
Mm.
But I think it would be close for me. I guess I'm just not as in on the talent as I am as other people might be.
No, I that's fair. Let's move on to QB9 here. Just edging out Bo Nix with an average of 9.5 is Dak Prescott, who I have at quarterback 10, Vinny has at quarterback 9. In consensus, Dak is the quarterback 12. So we are higher on Dak than the consensus by 3 spots. We are both in on Dak, as we've talked about. This guy is just, he gets it done when he plays. It's that simple. He gets it done. And he's finishing as a quarterback one most years he's healthy. I see this offense improving. CeeDee Lamb's coming back fully healthy. George Pickens added to the fold. Jake Ferguson is still there. I don't like the running back room, but I think this team wants to pass, so I'm really not that worried about it. So I really do like Dak. I guess the one thing that's holding me from putting him higher, because if you remember just the last few years, he's being ranked like quarterback 7 going into the year. I,
Mhm.
I guess it's just coming back from injury. And the O line isn't that good if we're being honest. PFF has them ranked at 23. And yeah, I think Zach Martin retired this offseason. So, they're a young O line. It's a little shaky. Coming off injuries, scary. He's not a rushing quarterback. 22nd best strength of schedule, which is not good. So there's some of those like smaller factors that really worry me, but this dude's a gunslinger and I like Dak. I like the situation. There's a reason why I'm still in it on him as a top 10 quarterback. Just that's where he's kind of capped for me. I just can't, put him above some of these other guys.
Yeah, no, and I think we should mention that his ADP and ranking overall is climbing pretty quickly
It is.
over
Yeah.
this offseason. I mean, I think we talked about him in our values at one of our first value episodes, and he was like around the 15, 16 range. So he's rising quickly. I think people are starting to realize that when this guy plays a healthy season, like you mentioned, he's an auto QB1. Like that's just what he's been. In every fully healthy season, he's played 16 or 17 games, which is about 4 or 5. He's been a QB1. So the big thing with him is health. And that's something that you obviously can't control. And honestly, with my rankings, I wasn't necessarily like considering. I kind of assume and hope that guys are going to be fully healthy. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what played in for me with Dak is that when he's healthy, like you said, he's a gunslinger. He throws touchdowns. He's got now George Pickens
Yeah.
has had CeeDee Lamb, but that connection I think could just be super special.
Mhm.
And if he's healthy, I think it's a monster season for Dak. So yeah, I think we both have seen similar thoughts on him.
Yeah. I think, just to mention, like, if that ADP keeps climbing, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. I think
Yeah,
he's going right now and like he's going 107th overall, which I mean, do the math. That's
that's like the ninth. Or
ninth. Yeah.
yeah, which I'm okay with. I'm
Late
fine with
amendment.
him there.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, if he starts to creep into like the seventh, which would be like a big jump, like that's when I would start to get a little uncomfortable drafting him, like
Mhm.
even maybe the eighth, but the ninth, 10th, I'm still all over him there.
Yeah. I think this is the first guy that we've mentioned tonight where I'm like, I want this guy on my team. And I
Mm,
have him written down in my personal rankings. I put a target next to his name because
yeah.
the rankings we're kind of doing just overall general whatever. But, I'm adding target in there because I'm baking in ADP, right? Say
Mhm.
Bo Nix was that ninth round quarterback, easy target for me.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to factor in ADP when you're looking at guys you want to draft. So the rankings aren't just strictly go in this order, go based off this. factor in ADP when you're doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, when you're using rankings to draft, for example, like you have those top 12. Say, for example, our top 12 is here, and maybe Goff and Herbert go off the board and Bo Nix is still there. All right, well then you go get Bo Nix.
Yep.
You kind of use it as a guide, not necessarily like the end all be all.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I just do want to mention too with Dak. Just one thing to be wary of. This guy is coming back from a leg injury. So while he's had a little not rushing upside, but like he's had a little bit there in the past few years, I think it drops off and I think he's going to be a pocket passer like strictly this year. But I do see the attempts being very high, like it has been. He had 590 the year before, 590 attempts, 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns.
Mhm.
Like I could see that year being there. Like the 242 rushing yards and two touchdowns, doubt that's there. But he was the quarterback 2 years ago, and I can see those attempts being really high again. So yeah, I like Dak and where he's going. Having him at QB9, I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great spot for him. And also to your point of like, yeah, that's kind of as high as he can go for me. These guys above him that we're gonna get to just have more of a ceiling that they can touch into. So, but yeah, I love Dak at 9.
Yep. All right. Hitting the top eight, Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback eight for us. I have him at seven. Vinny has him at eight, averages out to 7.5. Our quarterback seven, we had them flipped, so you'll see that in a minute. We decided to go with the other guy ahead just because, that's the way we decided to go about it. But Patrick Mahomes in consensus here is the quarterback six, and his ADP is 61. He's going the top of the sixth round. He's going very early. So Dak, the guy we have ranked one spot lower than him in our quarterback rankings, is going, what is it, 3 rounds later, three full
Yep.
rounds later. So,
Almost
again, when
crazy.
we're doing rankings, bake this stuff in. Uh,
Hmm.
Mahomes, when I did my initial rankings, Mahomes was at quarterback 11. Mahomes was low for me. I was like, oh, I'd prefer all these guys over him. That's just how I feel about it. Let me pull up his stats here. Um, but then looking back at it, like he had a ton of attempts last year, not a lot of yards. He wasn't throwing bombs like he has in the past. And his rushing somewhat there, 307 yards, two touchdowns. Um, but it only amounted to a quarterback 11 finish. And that's where the concern is, right? Is he's doing all this stuff, but it's not like to the Mahomes we know, and it's not amounting to the yards and touchdowns like it has in the past. He only had 26 touchdowns this past year. They have become a run the ball football team because they're a winning team. They're just like, okay, let's go win games. If this is what's working, let's just win football games. And so
Yep.
they're like, we don't need to use Mahomes like crazy. And, saying that all out loud now, I'm like, damn, yeah, now I know why I had him lower than some of these guys, including Dak, including Knicks. I don't know about Goff and Herbert when I did my initial rankings, I'll be honest with you. But I'm just thinking about it now. I'm like, so why do I have Mahomes all the way up at seven personally? Well, it's similar to Goff. It's the strength of schedule. The Chiefs are down at 27th. They're not going to come out and just win football games with their defense like they could the past few years. They're going to have to throw the ball. And I think that's with Worthy there, with Hollywood Brown there. I don't care how long Rice is injured. These two guys can run and be deep ball threats. I think there's a chance that we see gunslinging Mahomes again this year, and I'm excited for it. We saw it in the playoffs a little bit. Um, what game was it against? I don't remember. I remember seeing it a little bit in the Super Bowl too, but there was one specific AFC game I remember as well. But in the Super Bowl, they're down big. Who's chucking the ball deep? And we're seeing a Xavier Worthy touchdown. It's Mahomes is throwing it deep. And I think that for this specific offense and this specific team and Patrick Mahomes, I think this breeds fantasy success. Now, if you take one of these other guys that we just mentioned, if you say Dak's got the hardest schedule, I don't like it. right? I said Dak has the 22nd best strength of schedule. I don't love that for him because of the situation. Bo Nix, I would definitely not like that because of the weapons around him and because it's Bo Nix, not Patrick Mahomes. But for Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in the NFL, I love this. And I think this just breeds fantasy success. Maybe it's not going to be as great for the Chiefs, as a football team, but I think there's a huge opportunity here. Will I be drafting him? Absolutely not. It's too high at the quarterback six. But if he falls because people are starting to think, what I think of, oh, he did all this and he still wasn't great. He had a quarterback 11 finish last year. I may be willing to take him if he falls a round or two. It's not super exciting for fantasy. Mahomes has just never been exciting for fantasy outside of when he was just chucking it deep with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce catching everything. So the last few years haven't been great, but there's a chance if he were to fall, I'd be all over that because I think there's a chance he's a gunslinger again.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say he's never been exciting. That dude had like 5 straight years of
I
just
I
being
I I caught myself. I said since Tyreek
but
Hill.
yeah, and that was like 2 years, like 3 years ago. And but so I know what you mean. And honestly, I see some value in him from like a different perspective where like I think the past couple years people have been thinking maybe he gets back to gunslinging of like just bombing it. Now they have Worthy there. I don't think we ever get back to that style of offense for the Chiefs. Not at least not on a game to game basis. Like it may be some games they have to do it, and that's just what Mahomes he's obviously able to do that. But I just see him as like again, I agree with you that I wouldn't draft him at his current ADP, but he's a guy that he deserves to be in the QB1 rankings every year in my mind, just because he's not going to give you a dud. I mean, the guy is going to be efficient. But it might not be a crazy thing, but like, I don't think he had a game below 14 points last year. I could be wrong. I think I just took a quick look at his schedule,
It
but
was just double digits. He never touched single
yeah,
digits. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But to me, if like you mentioned, if you get him at the right spot, I feel comfortable with him as my QB1, very comfortable because it's a guy like I said, he's not gonna have a dud, but he also has the upside to go give you a 40 bomb on a on a night that like they just go crazy, and we all know his talent level, and he's very capable of doing that. So, like you said, if people start to all catch on to the fact like, oh, Mahomes isn't a fantasy quarterback anymore, then that's when I start to cash in and try and target him. But right now, I think I'm not going to take a guy in the 6th round at my quarterback position that doesn't have duds. I mean, I just need a little more consistently good point per game basis from him. So yeah, I think a similar viewpoint. We have him at similar spots in our rankings. But yeah, I would like people to, become more down on him so we could cash in because I still like Mahomes as a quarterback in fantasy.
Yeah. I think the thing is, even though he's not having duds, it's like 11 points. That'll never win you a fantasy week, right?
Yeah.
Like other guys are putting up 20, 22, and you're like, oh, well, I'm over here with Mahomes scoring 12 points. It's like, okay, now you're losing the week. So I guess I mean, we really need to see him throw the ball more for him to be effective. And it's crazy because he was throwing the ball a lot. So I guess we'll just see if he can start cashing in more touchdowns again, and hopefully those interception numbers drop off a little bit as well. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's Mahomes. It's just really hard to rank him any lower because we've seen how dominant he can be, even if it is 2 years removed.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's just one of those different breeds where like it's like a Brady where like
Yeah.
you talk crap about him all this offseason, oh, he's washed. He's not going to be able to get back there. I wouldn't be surprised if the dude came out and threw 40 touchdowns. Like he just has that like he's just one of those guys that you can't ever really fade him. So that's why if you had him outside of like outside of the top 10, I was going to give you a little crap for it. But I'm glad you came down to what you have him at
Yeah.
7.
Yeah,
But
I have him above you now. Like,
yeah, exactly, which is crazy. But I feel like we view him similarly.
yeah, I won't lie though, after this episode and after talking about our quarterback seven, Kyler Murray, I may end up being in the same boat as you where I switched the two. So you had Kyler at seven, Mahomes at eight, whereas I had Mahomes at seven, Kyler at eight. Um, but we're talking about Kyler as our quarterback seven because I said at the beginning of this podcast, before we started this, the two of us said, hey, who do we want to do? I said I could see Kyler being above Mahomes. So let's put Kyler above Mahomes. And that's exactly what we did. Kyler in the consensus rankings is nine. So we are both above consensus. The thing about Kyler is he finished at the quarterback 10 last year. 541 attempts, 3,800 passing yards, only 21 touchdowns. But the dude can rush. 572 yards last year, five touchdowns. The offensive line is getting better. Arizona is ranked 16th in the PFF's rankings. They signed Jonah Williams in free agency. They have a sixth overall pick, Paris Johnson, former sixth overall pick, Paris Johnson, who is going into his second year. There's some questions there, but PFF likes him in terms of PFF grades. So, I'm gonna fall in line with that. I kind of like it. They have the 11th best strength of schedule, so it's nice to see that. Kyler also in terms of the draft, he is going at pick 91. So that's like eighth round. So he's going in a good spot. I think the thing for Kyler for me, which is, he hasn't finished higher than 10th in the last 4 years. He finished as the quarterback six in his rookie year in 2019 and then three the following year. But then he finished at 10, didn't play two full seasons after that, and finished at 10 again last year. So it's like, okay, well, how are we getting there with Kyler again? It's the rushing upside. And now we're going into a second year removed from the injury with Marvin Harrison going into year two, who looks bigger, he looks good. Trey McBride, whoever else you want to put out there. I think Michael Wilson's a viable wide receiver, not for fantasy, but as an NFL receiver. You have James Conner, Trey Benson. I think there's something here where we could say that there's a chance for him to improve here. And, quarterback 10 is it's shaky, right? The guy's 27 now. So it's like, okay, well, at what point do we say Kyler Murray already peaked? He peaked as a rookie and sophomore. I don't think he's going to get back to quarterback three. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he ever will. But the rushing upside really kind of gets me going where I'm like, okay, this guy, he's really enticing. Like he has the ability to rush for over 800 yards, and that's the crazy part to me.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, the rushing upsides there. And I know I kind of touched on how these rushing upside QBs push other, pure talented pocket passers down the list. But in this case, I think it's different for me just because Kyler has proven to be an elite runner with the football as a quarterback. Like I don't want to put him in that Lamar territory just because like Lamar's a different level. That's an MVP level. But in terms of just being able to rush the ball, they both just seem to find paths and spaces where they just make these plays that no one else can make in terms of rushing the ball. So I think that's why I value him differently. And he has proven that he has the passing ability as well. He doesn't lack much in that area. So it's not like an Anthony Richardson or Justin Fields. This guy has proven that he can do it and at a high level. And I mean, you touched on those injured seasons the 2 years before last, but I think that's something to note that last year was his first full year back from a major injury. So I think we could see a step up as he, gets into a full year of rehab or full year with a full off season, being healthy, being able to handle everything like he would normally want to. So I think that's something to note as well that, I see an improvement overall just because this being his second full season post major injury.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the one thing about his passing is that the touchdowns have never been there. His best season, he had
Yeah.
26 touchdowns. So I'd like to see that improve for Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison's sake as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, the upside is certainly there, and there's reason as to why we have him at the quarterback seven and above consensus.
Yep. Yep.
Quarterback six. So top six here, Baker Mayfield. We both have him at six. So He averages out there. Consensus has him at 7 behind Mahomes, so we're a little bit higher on him. Baker, in terms of where he's being drafted, is 74th. So that I believe is like I think that's seventh round, sixth, yeah, seventh round. So, you're getting him early seventh. So below Mahomes, I guess that's a good thing. I think the thing about Baker is he was so good last year. Let me pull up some stats, but the offense as a whole is really good. Like I am starting to get a little worried about Chris Godwin, I won't lie to you, but Mike Evans is still there. They draft Emeka Egbuka. They have Jalen McMillan, who I guess had 8 touchdowns last year, which is crazy. Kate Otton's a fine tight end, right? So I think it's just one of these situations where I'm like, all right, like this guy could be really good. He was the fourth overall QB last year, 570 attempts, 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 378 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Like the guy can get it done. And I think it's really nice to see that since he's been in Tampa, he's been producing. He was the quarterback 10 the year before. So it's not like, oh, he just came out of nowhere last year. No, the guy was good the year before too. He was a quarterback 1 overall. He was written off in the draft and then in fantasy drafts, I'm talking. And last year, nobody was drafting him, and he was picked up off waivers and became a fantasy, like a championship winner for some people.
Yep.
The offensive line is elite. Even without Tristan Wirfs for the time being, it's still a it's sixth in PFF. Strength of schedule, 10th best. Like this team, I think should be very productive again. Bucky Irving going into year two. Rashad White's catching passes out of the backfield. I don't expect Baker to touch 41 touchdowns again, but I love this team as a whole. I think this offense is going to be very good again. And yeah, I'm in on Baker, and I'd be pretty happy to draft him.
Yeah, that the only thing is I don't know if I would necessarily go out of my way to draft him, depending on the team build. But yeah, I mean, the way I kind of went about it in terms of my ranking was I saw last year as kind of his ceiling in terms of a fantasy standpoint. Like, I don't think he goes out there and throws for 40 touchdowns and 4,500 yards again. I think he, settles in around that 30 touchdown mark and touches 4,000 yards. But in that stat line, that's just enough to put you in the middle of the pack of those top 10 QBs. So, um, 6 felt a little high for me, honestly, when I was ranking him. But honestly, the people behind him, I just, you know, didn't feel the need to put them above Baker. So this is kind of a territory where like I would be kind of out on these guys just because it's right outside the top 5, which are guys that, I really like. So I feel like this is a clear tier break for me. But yeah, I think Baker's definitely a very viable fantasy quarterback if that's who you end up with.
Yeah, I agree the tier break, but let me just make you feel a little bit better. If you say he drops off to about 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, well, he had 4,044 yards and 28 touchdowns 2 years ago, and he finished at the quarterback 10. I think 6 is a fine spot, kind of getting in the middle of the last 2 years. Um,
Hmm.
7 would be dead middle, so I get that's where he is in consensus. I don't really
Yeah.
want to spend a seventh on him, but I think he's really safe. And talking about like why you ranked him here, it's like unsettling, but at the same time, like you know what you're getting out of him, and there's less question marks. As weird as it is to say, Baker Mayfield, you know what you're getting, and with
Yeah. No,
what
yeah, you're right. And
compared
he
to Mahomes, who has question marks. So,
and he's proven to be like, they lost Dave Canales 2 years ago.
yep,
He went out and had this 40 touchdown season.
yep,
They lose Liam Cohen this year. I just don't see much of a difference in his gameplay. So yeah, you're right that you know what you're getting with him. He's just one of those guys that you really aren't relying on the rushing upside and just relying on the pure passing talent and just production of volume of touchdowns and stuff like that.
yep. The OC was in-house last year too, so
Yep, yep, yep.
they're not going out and getting another random guy. So
Exactly.
that's good
Yep.
too. Yeah, we're already short on time, crazy to say. Top five,
Well,
Joe.
there's not much to say about these. I mean, when
No,
we get to a point, we know who's coming up
that's
next for
true.
me.
That's true. These five are the top five in consensus. A little out of order, maybe. Maybe.
Mm.
We'll see in a sec. But yeah, Joe Burrow is quarterback five for us. I have him at five. Vinny has him at four. So you'll see quarterback four. They're flipped for us. He is Joe Burrow is the quarterback five in consensus. And in terms of draft spot, he is going at pick 43. So he is going in the fourth round. So, he's going pretty high, but this dude just went on a tear last year. Like and the defense might be worse, which makes no sense, but they're gonna have to throw the ball. Jamar Chase, the best receiver in football, is on that team. T. Higgins is there, who's arguably the best wide receiver too in football. Mike Gesicki's still there. Chase Brown catching passes out of the backfield. Like this is a very, very good offense, and it's hard to say, oh, I'd take Baker over Joe Burrow. No, you wouldn't. The offensive line is not good. That's my big concern. The offensive line is really rough. But they're middle of the pack, 17th in strength of schedule, so not too bad at all. Fourth round pick, definitely too rich for me. I just knowing that Joe Burrow's a pure passer, as much as I think that defense is gonna suck again and they're gonna have to pass, there's other guys I'd prefer in that situation, and maybe I'll wait a little bit and grab somebody else a little later.
Yeah, I mean, and honest, I was one spot higher on Burrow here, but honestly, I'd use the same argument as we just did for Baker. I mean, he lit it up last year with 43 and 9, which in almost 5,000 yards, which
Yeah.
is an outrageous year. But I mean, his last two fully healthy seasons, he had 35 and 12, 34 and 14, 4,500 yards passing. So this guy is just like not he's an elite pure pocket passer. So in the same light that we just talked about Baker Mayfield, where you know what you're getting, you can if this guy plays 16, 17 games, you can line him up for 35 and 4,500. So like honestly, I that's why I had him higher. It was like when this guy's healthy and his injury issues haven't necessarily been like proneness. I feel like they've just been more of a little bit of like unluckiness and just kind of the playing of football, how how that can impact you. So um yeah, I just like this guy, you can pencil him in if he's healthy. And for me, I'm, kind of a not a fan because that'd be fucked up to say I'm a fan of the second year rookie curse, but like I see a regression from Knicks and Jaden Daniels coming. Maybe not in a major way for Daniels, but I just, Burrow's ability to throw the ball and having Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, it just kind of forced my hand to put him one spot ahead of Daniels and ahead of consensus, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with Burrow too, last year it was like, oh, he's coming off injury. The injury didn't affect him at all. And he dropped in rankings. And because, he was a my guy for me last year. He was one of the three guys I had as like penciled in that I need him, I need him. And he won me a league last year. I wanted him as badly as I could. He was going like quarterback seven, quarterback eight. I'm like, he's being written off too much. This is crazy. I want Joe Burrow. And, that's the one guy I hit on, but that is one guy I'm riding with the chip on my shoulder for because, it's like this injury. Okay, what's he gonna be? What's he gonna be? Well, when he's healthy, we know exactly what he's gonna be. And he's the guy you want on your fantasy team.
And honestly, I mean, you said it was a little too rich for you in the fourth. I think I'd be okay with that, honestly, depending on what the other quarterbacks on the board at that time and my team build. But
Yeah.
that seems okay for me. For a guy that has like top three upside.
Yeah. I guess it just really depends because you're not getting a lot of rushing from him. But then again, it's like, do you want a tier one quarterback? You have to grab Burrow
Yeah,
because other than that, like I love Baker, but if Baker's the next quarterback you can take, it's just such a drastic difference between the two.
yeah.
Quarterback four, Jaden Daniels, who I have at four, Vinny, you have at five. We just kind of followed consensus with these two because Jaden Daniels is three in consensus. And we're a spot lower, and Vinny's actually two spots lower. Uh,
Yep.
where is he going in drafts? Jaden Daniels is going 36 overall, last pick of the third round. So he's going pretty high. Offensive line rankings. I think they're somewhere in the middle of the pack. Yep, 19th. Not amazing, but they did just trade for Laramie Tunsil. In terms of strength of schedule, 19th. Not great, not too bad. Um, the thing about Jane Dane, like I was just looking at what he did last year because I was kind of thinking the same thing. I'm really worried about McLaurin. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm really worried about that. And if McLaurin holds out or gets traded, his best receiver is Debo Samuel and Zach Ertz. Like he has basically nobody. So
Yep.
that's the big concern. But the dude ran for almost 900 yards last year. He passed really well. He was hyper accurate. He also only had 25 passing touchdowns, which is kind of crazy. Um, but looking at the schedule, like the dude played so well. Philly was a dominant defense, and in week 16, he had 36 fantasy points against them with five touchdowns and 81 rushing yards. Like this dude just said, I don't care who I'm going against, like I'm gonna get it done. And I think that was the big thing for me, where it was like he had such a soft schedule to start. I'm like, ooh, what's gonna happen with Jane Daniels? And he became matchup proof. He immediately became matchup proof. The rushing upside is just so there. I guess Terry's my biggest concern. If Terry holds out or something happens with him and Jane has basically no one to throw to, I'm kind of gonna expect a little bit of a regression from last year. So I'm with you in that aspect. Like if Terry's out, if not, I think that offense might be getting a little better. And Jaden Daniels is just he's different. It's not CJ Stroud in my opinion. I think Jaden Daniels is just he was so hyper accurate. He just feels like the truth to me.
Yep.
Whereas, maybe if I had to pick between the two, like Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix, I would absolutely say Bo Nix is going to regress over Daniels. I really feel like Daniels is just a really good quarterback. And I kind of just trust him here with the rushing upside too.
Yeah, no, I mean, my, below consensus ranking on Daniels doesn't really mean much to me. Like, I still think he's a locked in top 10 QB1 or top 10 quarterback in fantasy. Five for me, I just, I don't know. I am a believer in that, like, defensive coordinators in the NFL, you give them a full off season. Daniels is, I think he is one of those guys, but it's still only year two for him. Like I think he still has things that he's going to need to figure out on the fly and adjust to. And the fact that the Commanders, you mentioned Terry McLaurin potentially, dealing with this holdout trade if anything happens, whatever happens with that. Even besides that, if Terry comes back, they didn't even really do much to upgrade the offense. I mean, you could say you brought in Debo, but I think we both agree we're not, super high on Debo at all. So I mean, I don't know. They didn't do much to really like push the hand of like, listen, all right, this guy's we're a force to be reckoned with, which I wish they did. I wish they went and got like a number two to Terry or like even someone better than Terry. But I mean,
Hmm.
that all being said, the rushing upside's there. He is an elite talent. I think
Yep.
you could go either way with Burrow or him in your rankings or in a draft. But yeah, honestly, for the price, I think I'd rather have Burrow. I think Jaden Daniels is going a little bit ahead of him, you said. So I think I'd rather have Burrow for the price, just be my personal preference. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah, I think just again, these are tier one quarterbacks. Like if you
Yep.
want a
Yep.
tier one guy, get one of these two. And I wouldn't fault you for taking either one, whoever you prefer.
Yep.
Our top three are the same across the board. So number three for both of us is Jalen Hurts, who is number four in consensus, who's being drafted at 40th overall, so fourth round. This dude has the number one offensive line in football. They have the 29th strength of schedule, which is tough, right? We don't necessarily love that. But again, like I mentioned earlier with Mahomes, good football teams, I think if they have to pass the ball, and in this situation, Hurts is going to have to pass the ball. I like that a lot. And I think this is good for him and the offense. They ran through Saquon like crazy because they could last year. I think they might have to pass a little more. And I like that for Jalen Hurts and the rushing upside. Like this guy finished, he finished in the past 4 years, by the way, at 9, 3, 2, and 8. He also only played 17 games 2 years ago when he finished at quarterback two. He played 15 games the other three. His attempts were way down last year at 361. I expect that to go back up into the 400s. He was below 3,000 yards. He had only 18 touchdowns. But the rushing, 630 yards, 14 touchdowns. Like I expect the rushing to still be there like crazy. I think he's going to still rush for double-digit touchdowns like he has been consistently the past few years. But I kind of think that passing upside is going to come with it too because of that hard schedule, and they're going to have to pass. So I really like Jalen Hurts this year, especially behind the number one O line.
Yeah, for me, this was honestly pretty easy to put him above Daniels. I'm honestly surprised that the consensus has Daniels higher, just because this feels to me like, I think Daniels as a football player has more potential than Hurts to be a better player. But
Yeah,
honestly, like what Hurts is what you're hoping Daniels turns into as a fantasy quarterback on a year-to-year basis. So in my mind, like why would I spend the capital on a guy going into his second year where I don't think there's much uncertainty, but there's no uncertainty with Jalen Hurts. You know what you're going to get. The dude puts up ridiculous rushing touchdown numbers and rushing numbers overall, and he could throw the ball, and we both think he's going to increase passing in general this year. So in my mind, like it's kind of a no-brainer unless it's a little bit of a risk for me to go Daniels above Hurts. Like it's just kind of like, okay, you're getting a little better production than Hurts if Daniels kind of hits on everything that people think he will again at that ranking. So yeah, I don't know. Again, you can't go wrong with the two, but for me, it was easy to go Hurts over, him and Burrow.
yeah. I mean, the passing is really scary. I won't lie. His career high in touchdowns is 23. His career high in yards is 3,800. So he is a
But
little bit capped in passing, but with that rushing ability and rushing
exactly.
upside, like he's rushed for over 600 yards the last 4 years straight and double-digit touchdowns the last 4 years straight. Like I think that's just what you got to realize you're getting out of him is you're getting this guy who's going to be the
Yeah.
probably the best rushing quarterback in fantasy football.
Yeah, that's what eases me over is that consistency, that not even consistency, elite consistency that you're getting there. That's what eases me over. The throwing numbers are okay with me.
Yep. If you don't mind, especially because of time, I'm gonna lump these top two in together and
Yeah,
we can
yeah,
kind of compare them. They're in consensus, Josh Allen is one, Lamar is two. In our rankings, Josh Allen is one, Lamar is two.
yep.
Um, Right, we're looking at these two together. Josh Allen is and Lamar, where are they being drafted here? They're being drafted two spots apart. Based on ADP, Lamar's actually going two spots higher. They're both at the 2-3 turn. So they're going pretty high, but you're getting a quarterback who has a lot of rushing upside and a lot of passing upside. We saw Lamar throw over 40 touchdowns last year, and this guy was just elite. And he ran away with the quarterback one title in fantasy, and it was a different version of Lamar we haven't seen before. Um, Kind of the reason I have Lamar down below Josh is health has somewhat been a concern for him. I also think the passing touchdowns are going to drop off. They're both in similar offenses where they don't have a lot of weapons to throw to, but they're just that good at quarterback. The reason I have Josh above him, Josh has finished, let me pull it up exactly, but I'm pretty sure
I think I know
the
what you're gonna
last
say.
the
He's
last
finished as a one
5 years.
or two
Yeah,
the
the
last
last
5 years.
5 years straight.
Yeah.
It's been a one or two the last 5 years straight. Like you are getting an amazing quarterback right here with Josh Allen. Even if he finishes at two, he's finishing at two. Oh well, Lamar, I think, has a lower floor. It's crazy to say Josh Allen's floor is number two, but it low key is. Also, PFF has them ranked as a third best O line, whereas Baltimore is 17th. Strength of schedule. The Bills are at 5. The Ravens are at 21. I again, like if we're talking about strength of schedule for Mahomes and Goff, guys who throw the ball. I like the hard schedules because I think that is good for them. Same with Hurts, right? They're not going to just run the ball and run through Barkley. Um, as for Josh Allen, I think that's a good thing for the offense as a whole. I think his rushing touchdowns are going to be up through the roof again. He had 12 last year, 15 the year before. I kind of expect those numbers to remain similar. And in an easy schedule, I think that's easy for him to do. And I think he's going to have a great year and passing the ball, doing all of that. They're going to be going for another division title, probably trying to make it to the conference finals, if not the Super Bowl again. So, this team, both these teams are going to be doing a lot of work on offense, but, I think Josh Allen's floor is a lot higher, and I like the O-line better. I like the strength of schedule better, and that's why I have Josh Allen at one.
Yeah, for me, honestly, this might be a hot take, but it wasn't even hard for me to put Josh Allen at one.
I
Like
don't think it was for me either.
it was very easy. And to all the points you just said, that like not to say this is new for Lamar, but these past 2 years were kind of out of the ordinary over the past five. Like I know he was a little banged up, but he was still getting up to 15 games in those seasons that he had like a QB 13, 14. So I mean, I don't think Lamar regresses at all into that range ever again, but Josh Allen's been doing this for the past 5 seasons,
Yeah.
and it's just like you mentioned, you know what you're gonna get. Oh no, he has a quarter. Even if he has a quarterback four finish, quarterback three finish, like that's out of the ordinary for him. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's a guy that I'm honestly targeting in drafts, and that seems kind of weird to say, just because like it's the QB1, it's going to be in the first 2, 3 rounds.
Mhm.
So I mean, but it's a guy that like it's a true positional advantage unlike any other, really at the position, at any position in fantasy. I mean, you can't say that for a lot of guys at wide receiver, running back, anyone really. Everyone has down years where they fall outside that elite tier a little bit, but Josh Allen hasn't done it. So for me, this was easy. I think he should be the clear QB1 in everyone's rankings.
Yeah, I think I will say I think we talk about tier one as the top five quarterbacks this year with Josh Allen, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and Joe Burrow, but I kind of feel like it's a 1A with Josh Allen and Lamar. Like both of their rushing to like just for
Yeah, no, definitely one A.
Lamar
Yeah.
last year had 915 total rushing yards and four rushing touchdowns. Like he's done better than four rushing touchdowns. I know we both think the 41 touchdowns is going to drop off, which it probably will. But I mean, he's throwing the ball more than he ever has, which is a great sign. Like 474 attempts is a career high. Completions at 316 is a career high. 4,100 yards is a career high. So I think both of these guys, you really can't go wrong, especially with where they're being drafted. Is it really that bad? Like, if you want to go early QB, like take either one of these guys. For me, it's easy Josh Allen over Lamar, but yeah, both of these guys are just like you're going to get elite numbers as long as they're both healthy.
Yeah, I think for personal I just would much rather have Josh Allen. But it's
Me-
not a downplay on what Lamar did last year, did the past 2 years at all. Like that guy, we're talking about the 1 and 2 in our rankings, you know? So like you said, you can't go wrong with either one. I just think, I trust the consistency from Allen, from a year to year basis rather than just basing it off of last year.
Yep, I agree with you. So yeah, that'll do it. That's our quarterback rankings. Next episode, we're gonna start the running back rankings. So we're gonna do 20 to 11 and then 10 to 1. So we'll have more running backs for you. We'll do two separate episodes for the running backs, same with the wide receivers. But yeah, that's how we're going to be doing these rankings episodes. A lot of fun to see how we both land and then create kind of a consensus together. So a lot of fun. Looking forward to keep doing these rankings videos, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in as always.
Peace.